Oh, we don't need no fancy words. I mean, we need to practice. We need to rehearse.
I'll tell you what we need. We need some paying gigs. We don't need this messing around, first one patio and then another, and that's ridiculous.
Amen.
We don't got no goddamn band. We don't need fucking practice.
Do you want to wax poetic anymore about Nico Case, or are we ready to start the show?
Welcome to the No GD Band podcast. I'm Marvin the Martian.
And I'm Chris, and welcome to the show.
And do you remember this character, Chris?
I do remember that character.
I'm doing it wrong. I sound a little funny in the microphone.
So is this going to be your new thing, like starting with a...
I saw...
impressions.
I'm going to see how they go. It's an experiment. I'm going where I start.
Okay. What was his name? The little guy that wore the gladiator helmet?
Marvin the Martian.
Marvin the Martian.
And I think he enunciated like this.
He did.
He had a little thing at the end of his voice that made him sound a certain way.
And this week's impression was brought to you by...
The No GD.
So Henry went Sunday night to see Nico Case.
Yeah.
It wasn't really on our docket for us to talk about, but
Sorry,
hey, he tweeted using the No GD Band tweet. What do you call that?
Twitter account.
And she liked it, and
now I'm all jazzed.
And
about
of course,
it.
I quickly jumped on that and didn't let Henry be super excited. I just said, Can you get her on the podcast?
Yeah.
That's the way we think now, folks. So
anyways,
keep your fingers crossed, and all of you out there listening, if you will also tweet Nico Case that you want to hear on the No GD Band podcast, that would help expedite matters as well. Henry, the first actual item though we've got a couple more guys we've got to discuss for the sexual harassment tote board.
God Almighty, sexual harassment tote board update. Michael Douglas. I saw that briefly. And
so
I'm starting to get fatigued now.
Well, he's trying to get out ahead. He's doing the whole jumping the gun. That's not jumping the shark, right? That's a whole different thing.
No, that's something else.
So yeah, so he knew it was coming. He knew they were writing an expose on him, so he went ahead and tried to get out in front of it. I think his whole thing is 30 years ago, kind of unemployed. This is actually kind of definitely a disgruntled. It looks
like a disgruntled employee. Situation.
It could be. I mean, I don't want to discredit what she's saying. I'm just saying, to me, it had a lot of disgruntled employee. But I'll tell you what was interesting to me about Henry, and it didn't bother me at the time. But in his getting out in front of it, he said, "Look, the three things she's accused me of, I didn't do two of them, but the third one, using salty language in front of her, I did do that because when I work with people." In my work relationships and my personal relationships, I have pretty colorful language, and I probably need to clean that up some in the work environment, but that's just the way I am. And I didn't think much of that. I thought that was kind of cool at the time, but then all this Trump stuff went down, and it made me think of all these Republicans jumping to defend Trump. Well, yes, he used salty language, but he didn't, blah, 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 blah. And then I started thinking about now we've started bleeding into colorful language in the workplace, which is maybe another issue.
It's hard because I've had. It's almost like I feel like I don't know that I can formulate my opinion on it very well, but I know that the definition of this is starting to expand.
Yeah,
right. As we've seen with the other guy that we want to talk about. With
Aziz. So Aziz Ansari, me and Henry had a little pre-text discussion about that.
I think I got on this. I think the first reaction is, oh my God, Aziz, what the hell are you doing? The claw, dude. I mean,
It's also kind of funny that he's wrote a book about modern romance, which I forgot about.
Remember that thing he did on NPR? It was an interview about that book, I think. Mm-hmm. He sounds really smart and with it and feminist.
All about like the millennial dating and how to do it properly and all that. And then this came out. But
I had one opinion about it.
Right.
I started, but and I think we probably ended our discussion when I said we need to listen more to feminist writers and all of those people and shut up about it and listen, I guess.
Yeah, and that came home again to me last night. Megan and I were watching the DVR, the Bill Maher show, the most recent one. Mm-hmm. And he did, I don't know if you ever watched that show.
I watched the last one.
Well, he does this thing at the end called something like New Rules. And at the end of his New Rules, he basically did the whole, he was basically saying, we have to look at the degrees. Pulling your penis out in front of somebody is not as harmful as raping being somebody. And so, no, I'm sorry if X person pulled their penis out in front of you. You wouldn't rather be raped. And to me, it totally exemplified how men are missing the point. Women don't want us telling them that rape or having a penis pulled out in front of them is better or worse. They need to decide.
Right.
It's not for Bill Maher to decide the degrees. He doesn't know how it feels to a woman either way. So what women are asking is, I think, instead of guys like Bill Maher mansplaining the difference, step back, shut up, and let them decide what the new rules are.
Right. I think it's one of the most difficult things that when I talked to Jessica about it, was that I think I need to be quiet while the other side sort of sorts out.
Yeah, and we've been saying this for a while, but we definitely need to have a woman on the show for the female opinion if we're going to discuss this as much as we have.
I've read some pretty interesting articles about women who have had sex, the kind of sex they didn't want to have. Well,
that's the next issue. And before we hit that real quick, I wanted to mention the Wahlberg thing, just because I think I think there's some other issues here that we're not really focusing on, which is like this pay inequality thing. So not only did Wahlberg get this bonus, but I don't know if you saw this week it came out, he was paid 6 times what Michelle Williams was paid.
For reshoots?
No. For the original, their original movie salaries has come out, and he was paid 6 times what she was paid to be in the movie.
Okay, that part I didn't know.
Which blows my mind, because I would say Michelle Williams is a bigger star in my world than
Wahlberg,
than Mark Wahlberg.
Nope. He's Mr. Transformers. She makes little art movies. He's like mainstream Transformers guy, right? He brings people in, right?
I don't know. I guess in my world, I would think I would say no. He's not 6 times bigger a star than Michelle
think about
Williams.
it. Think if you're Joe Sixpack or what, you're normal movie guy that really likes the Transformers movies and all of that stuff. They're big movie makers, and they hire these guys because they put asses in the seat, right?
I didn't even know he was in Transformers.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe you're right. But anyway, so... But I want to get back to your other point, because I think it was really something where me and Henry both went, which was, and just to finish on the pay inequality, I think that kind of thing is I'm hoping where this thing eventually settles.
Yeah,
which is women need to be paid the same as men for the same work.
Like the practicalities of that.
That kind of stuff. I'm hoping the Me Too movement branches out beyond sex and gets into enough is enough. If I do the same job as you, I get paid the same as you.
Yeah. And I feel like the last thing the world needs is me trying to leverage my understanding onto it. I think I should just wait and see how it pans out. There's no way that I can keep talking about these guys, as they hit my phone, but I don't know how it's going to shake out. It just feels it's disorienting and strange to me.
This short story that was posted, that was in the New Yorker, really struck a chord with people and went viral, I guess is what you would say. This girl just got a $6 million book deal 2 days after that.
Really?
Went. And good for her. Henry will post a link to it with this pod, but I read it and it really rocked me to my core about my understanding of what goes on. And Henry then read it, and I thought maybe we'd discuss it if you thought it was worth discussing.
And one thing I avoided I've avoided fiction reading or probably for a certain part of my life because I didn't know that it would really tell me or inform me of anything. And recently, when I started taking an American Lit class, I started realizing that there's a lot of emotional truth that can be had in fiction, right? And this is a great example of that. It's like it illustrates the conflicted thought process that people have surrounding how they actualize sex in the real world, how surprise reveals itself to her, what her reaction is.
So the short story is
Right.
called Cat Person.
Right, Cat.
It's by Kristen Rupinian.
Yeah.
It was in the New Yorker. We'll post a link to it, but you can find it. If you trust me, if you just type Cat Person into Google, you're going to find this thing.
Yeah.
Basically, what it describes in a nutshell is not a harassment or a rape situation. It just really describes a bad
date.
A bad day.
Yeah.
But what blew my mind, Henry, was that I didn't know that the complexity of what seems to go through women's minds,
Or at least this one.
right? Or it's possible to
This
go
person.
through women's minds when
Right.
they have sex, versus what goes through
Right. And
my
the various
mind,
reasons.
and then also the way that they're able to, and maybe society makes them hide those things because she never really verbalized it or gave off any signs to this guy. And I'm not saying she should have. I'm just saying, wow, there's a lot going on. And it seems like for me, it's a much more simple
Right.
thing.
A more simpler transactional type situation.
It could be even transactional for a guy. Even if there's feelings involved for a guy, there was stuff going on in this story that I was like, wow, and this is not rape. This is just like. So it made me think about all those things, and then I think it gave me a perspective of it really kind of scared me away from any type of sexual activity that is not explicitly asked for. Do you know what I'm saying?
I read this when I was with my family, and one of the things I said was, it seems like we might be heading to a situation where I've got to get. It seems, Chris, this is awkward to talk about. Because every time I want to talk to you about it, I feel like I'm looking back at myself saying this, and I feel like some sexist jerk.
Yeah, it's very hard for men, I think, right now to find.
Do you know what I'm talking? Do you understand what I'm
about.
talking about?
Right.
Like the analogy I want to give you is this, and I feel like it sounds dickish. It seems like we're headed for a world in which I've got to hand you an index card. Is it okay that I kiss you now? Is it okay for this?
Yeah.
Is it okay for that? And those words, as they fall out of my mouth, make me feel
Yeah, but if you express
kind of shitty.
But if you express
right?
the opinion the other way, which is, you know what, some girls want you to just come up behind them and like what?
Yeah.
But then I'm like, God, that sounds terrible.
That sounds terrible too.
Sounds-
It's like, well, what do you? I'm going to put the voice on, like the voice of that guy, which is, what do you? You know, there's some women who like to be manhandled. How about that? How about some people don't really want you to bother with trying to get their consent? That's the way they get off.
Yeah. So, but
That's, you know.
but again, to me, I think it falls back to I think we're going to need women to define,
Yeah.
and maybe it's an individual thing. But I think there is going to be a little bit of something lost here, but maybe it's lost for the greater good.
And maybe it'll go along
'cause
the lines you're saying, which is better pay.
I would like
Or-
to think
or
that those sorts
pay
of
equality.
things happen from this. That we get to a place where those sorts of things at least get worked out. But we're going to move on, folks, because this is something we'll probably keep coming back to. Henry, you want to do some whiskey? We need it now, don't we?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
As we say in Ireland, let's drink until the alcohol in our system destroys our livers and kills us.
I'm going to do it today, Henry.
Oh yeah.
Why don't you ask me the question?
What are we drinking today, Christopher?
We are drinking Jameson's Black Barrel.
That's some smooth stuff.
I
took a
like
sip.
it. It's Irish. Obviously, most of you know that Jameson's Irish. So my neighbor across the street, Henry, I was telling him about the podcast Saturday, and I didn't. He's a whiskey connoisseur.
Really? That's scary.
Yeah, and so he was very interested in the podcast, but then he started telling me about his private his like private reserve collection.
Oh, really?
And I had not heard of any of it.
Really? I've got this book that has like 1,000 of them.
I felt really bad because his name is Don, and Don was like, yes, I've got this stuff that I bought like last year. And I was like, I kind of wanted to be like, could you bring that over? Because that would really like level up our podcast.
It wasn't this, though.
No, it wasn't.
Oh.
But I was a little encouraged because he did say he liked the selection at the local ABC store, which is basically where all of our stuff's coming from. So anyway, Don, if you're listening, we're sorry that we're just common whiskey people, but
Right.
but what are your thoughts on this? I like this.
I like it a lot.
I like the Irish.
It tastes good, too.
All of the Irishes so far, I think, have been great. But,
Jameson Black Barrel.
all right, let's onward and upward. Let's get back to the.
As we say in Ireland, let's drink until the alcohol in our system destroys our livers and kills us.
All right, we haven't really talked but we got set back a little bit by the holidays and the weather and all of that. But Trump has sort of outed himself as an actual racist, but there's a lot of denials happening, right? About what the meaning of his word is of the word shithole.
Did you see Tom Cotton on Meet the Press?
No. You mentioned it Sunday, but I was on my way out of town.
You need to, and all of you guys out there need to check this out.
What did he say?
It was very similar to the I didn't have sex with the woman had sex on me.
What?
Kind of thing that Clinton said. So he was even pressed on, did Lindsey Graham, Lindsey Graham said he personally told Trump in that meeting that kind of told him what he thought. And the guy asked Tom Cotton, did Lindsey Graham do that? And he said, I didn't hear Lindsey Graham do that. I heard Lindsey Graham making it talk about immigration reform. And he said, so you're telling me Lindsey Graham lied when he said this, and this. And he read specifically what Lindsey Graham said. And Tom Cotton said, no, that's what he said. He was talking about immigration reform. So he was doing that parsing the words thing. And then, this whole kind of like, just admit what everybody said and stop trying to parse out, It's really,
Was it uncomfortable?
No, it was actually kind of silly. Like Tom Cotton was even almost like kind of smirking. And then to have followed Dick Durbin, who just unequivocated, like when he was on there, just like 5 minutes before saying, no, he said this, and this. No, this is what was said here. I was sitting right beside him. He said this. There was no like equivocation of of any kind. It was just like it was ridiculous. But the thing I want to talk about that, and this is one of those things where it's like the longer we get away from things, does it even matter?
Yeah.
Like are we already so far away from that we're already over the shock of it?
Yeah. Like remember, did you watch Saturday Night Live this weekend?
I did.
So you know what? Yeah.
Yes.
We're talking about that skit where they drop character and we're like, does anything even matter anymore?
Yeah, I feel like when we're making our show notes, if we don't do a show within 3 days of the note,
then it's expired.
Right. But I want to go back even further than that because there was one important point about that meeting that I think was missed.
Okay.
So I read the Fire and Fury book.
Cover to cover?
Cover to cover.
God, you're a fast reader.
And I'm not a fast reader. It was a hard read, Henry, because
it can't be hard. I heard it was great.
It's fun and it's like salacious, but I don't want to live in that world for 7 hours. And that's what you've got to do to read that book. That book is really worth reading, not for all the juicy stuff, but it really lets you understand some of the basics about how things work there. So, with that said, it seems very much like there are factions in the White House operating from a position of, if I can get to him last, he's going to agree with me.
Right. Okay.
And then I can get my shit done. And there's a big split between the, Michael Wolff calls it the Jarvanka.
Really?
Jarvanka on one side and
Bannon
on the other side.
Yeah.
But so basically, they all have gotten to the point where they know he's a child and that he doesn't even understand or know the issues. So that meeting, the big thing about that meeting was not the shithole comment. The big thing was he told in his big televised, I'm the wheeler dealer, bring me a bill. I'll take the heat for it, even if it protects DACA.
Right.
Bring me a bill,
And I'll sign it.
We'll sign it.
Right.
So
he was on camera saying that.
Right. So Lindsey Graham and Dick Durbin take him at his word, go back, work out a deal, an actual deal that will pass the Senate, head back up. As they're heading back up, the hardcore conservative right gets a call from Steve, or what's his name? Stephen
Miller.
Is
that the guy?
Yes.
Asshole face.
Says, you guys got to get up here and head this off because he'll sign whatever they put in front of him. So the amazing part of that meeting was those guys walk into the meeting and Cotton and those other dudes are already there.
Right.
Babysitting Trump, waiting for them in ambush.
So that he won't sign what he had previously agreed to sign before.
It's like he is in a coma, and they're just, it's like Weekend at Bernie's. Whoever gets to him first, it's like Tom Cotton was sitting there with his arm around him going, he's not going to sign anything you bring today, boys. It is terrifying that the President of the United States is kind of just a big, dumb spaz who doesn't even know he's being worked. Completely worked. And then doesn't have even the wherewithal not to just start spouting off obscenities, which is always really basically
probably done his whole life.
But anyway, so that to me was the amazing part, that they had this whole thing worked out
and basically verified everything that Michael Wolff is saying in his book, the dynamics at play.
Yeah, and the other thing,
because this happened after the book came out.
Yes, this happened totally after the book came out, and I was in the middle of reading, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. Some of my other things I took away from the book, Henry, I am totally convinced that Michael Wolff is correct. There was no collusion. There's not enough cohesion or smarts in this White House to really collude. They couldn't have colluded. They couldn't have pulled off collusion. The only way they could have colluded is if they had all got Michael Wolff in a room together and said, we're going to collude, write a book about it. These people, all they've been doing since
you saying that after reading this book, that even other smarter people smarter than Trump, right, could not have colluded in any way?
Oh no!
Is that what you're saying?
No.
Or that Trump himself?
Trump didn't collude, and his campaign did not collude. Now, did Jared, his other sons, Manafort, Flynn, did they commit treason? Did Trump, when he fired Comey, did he obstruct justice? All that's probably true. But I don't think there was any collusion, because here's the thing that I didn't realize until I read the book. They were all 150% convinced they were going to lose.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Is this true?
He didn't even want to win. He had the TV deal all set up. Jared did not want him to win. Jared had a bunch of deals. He was making deals with these Russian guys for post. None of them actually wanted to win. That's the other thing that blows my mind. They actually were going to be much better off losing.
Like financially. Does Wolff think there was collusion? He says no.
No.
Too inept.
Way too inept for there to actually be an organized collusion campaign. The other thing about that was with Bannon is, as said from day one in the book, and let me lay this out for you if you haven't read the book. Basically, Michael Wolff is sitting there, and all these different factions are coming to talk to him to try to discredit the other faction. All the leaking that Trump has been so pissed about since day one is actually all the White House staff. It hasn't been the CIA and the FBI. It's been Bannon, Jared, Hope Hicks. It's all of them leaking, trying to destroy the other faction. It's like that show when we were kids, Dynasty. It's like all these competing factions in the White House, which now has been culled out to basically you've just got the family-run operation is there now, especially if they get rid of the chief of staff guy. You're basically down to the Trump organization running things. But what Bannon was saying, so they're all talking to Michael Wolff, and they're all leaking as quickly as they can, which is just insane. Had nothing to do with running, the White House or doing the country's business. But the thing that struck me was Bannon was saying Mueller, the first attorney that Mueller hired, was this hotshot financial prosecutor, a guy that goes after people for financial crime. Yeah. That the whole focus of this from day one is not collusion. The
But-
focus
but
of
to
this
find the money.
is to find all the dirty money. And I didn't know this either. Jared's father has already been to jail.
Yes.
For,
Yeah, I knew about that.
And he was pressuring Jared to get this over with and get out of the White House because they're going into his shit again. They're going into Jared's shit. And Bannon's like, Trump, Jared, and Jared's dad are all dirty. They're all dirty. He was like, we needed to nip this in the bud in the beginning because that's where they're headed. And these people are not smart enough to know that's where this is headed. And it's not going to, when Mueller lays down the law, it isn't going to have anything to do with collusion. He's not going to find any because we didn't collude. He's going to find Trump's been funded by the Russians for 20 years.
Financial improprieties.
Yeah. And so it's funny
And
because
will
it's like Bannon's been the one telling Wolff in the book, he's predicting all this stuff. And that was where the comments came up, the part of the book where he says, these people are like standing on the beach with a Cat 5 hurricane coming in. They can, you know. So it'll be...
You think they'll take him down over the money? If it comes out like that?
I think Jared is definitely going down. And if Jared... from what I read in this book, there is enough non-love between Jared and Trump that if Mueller gets Jared by the nuts, Jared will squeal on Trump. Like, he'll say everything in the world to save his own skin.
Let me ask you that. Let me posit this. Are we better off with Trump, a diminished, crazy Trump,
No.
than we are with the alternative?
No.
Which is Pence, who can probably actualize on this.
No, and I'll tell you, I've been thinking about that a lot, and I'll tell you my two reasons
why you believe that.
Okay. The first reason is, if you look historically at presidents, the first 2 years of their presidency is when shit gets done.
Okay.
The second 2 years is trying to win a re-election. So Pence would get the second 2 years, which
Right.
would already be just trying to get shored up for 2020. Secondly, Gerald Ford was irreparably damaged replacing Nixon. I don't see any way that Pence could muster enough support if Trump was impeached, to get his Handmaid's Tale.
You don't think that he
worldview
could?
done.
You don't think he could put a new shiny veneer on the situation in 2 years and get reelected?
No. If Republicans have to go through the ritual of saying Trump is a scumbag and we have to impeach him, then they are going to have to answer for 2 years for why they lied about him saying things like shithole when now they know they just impeached him. So, well, why were you lying about him being saying shithole? Well, they will if we take the House, I think. But here's,
yeah. I mean,
but here's my
current
other,
status they won't. But if
and then once that happens and the handwriting's on the wall, watch the Republicans try to jump on the. That's why I don't like these guys that are retiring Republicans that now have the balls, and everyone's congratulating them for standing up and saying
you're Jeff Flakes and people like that.
Yeah, well, Jeff Flake is only saying that because he's retiring. So, way to go, Jeff Flake.
Yeah, it doesn't have to continue on.
Here's the other reason why I think we're better off with Pence. An insane person picking fights with North Korea is still an insane person.
Right.
And you know that thing with Hawaii the other day with the ballistic missile false alarm.
Right.
That is becoming normalized. My first thought when I saw it was not that there was a false alarm. It was that, oh shit, they've
launched
Hawaii.
I saw the picture. The first thing I saw was that picture. You know, the alert that appeared on everybody's phone. I'm telling you, if that appeared on my phone,
yeah,
I'm going to be like running for the basement. And they had to deal with that for half an hour, man.
As weird as Pence is,
anyway,
I don't think Pence is going to walk into a nuclear war. But so that's why I still think we'd be better off with Pence. Yeah. It would still be a shit sandwich. But let's move on. I know Trump gets a lot of people worked up. But quickly, Henry, tell us about this Supreme Court. I
got a tweet from Jeff Jackson not too long ago. Basically, the Supreme Court is not going to mandate that North Carolina redraw its districts.
This is huge.
Yet.
This is
right?
huge. Which means
But they didn't provide any justification for it. Right? They just said they're not going to require it, and that's it. Right?
Well, no, they're not going to require it. before the election.
Before the election, right.
They're going to wait until they actually hear the case and rule on it. The problem with that
But you think that this is a harbinger for what they're really going to say.
I do.
Later
and
down
I also think
But they have to have time to review it. That's the idea, right?
the idea is, they're not going to be railroaded into making a quick decision or making them redo the districts before the 2018 election because they haven't heard the case. My thought on it is that this is a harbinger, first of all, of things are going to go
It's bad news.
badly. Second of all, there were going to be 6 seats that would definitely have changed congressionally to Democrats if our districts were drawn normal.
Mm-hmm.
If you just drew the districts the way they should be drawn in North Carolina, independent organizations looking at it would say 6 seats will definitely change.
Okay.
So in 2018, that's if you change 6 seats right off the bat in North Carolina and the 8 seats that they think would happen in California that are a no-brainer, it's already a done deal. The lower house, Congress is flipped. We flipped it. So right there, this is already kind of a political decision because not hearing this case or not upholding the lower court's decision to go ahead and make them redo the districts could basically keep Congress from flipping in 2018, which would guarantee 2 more years of Trump, which would guarantee because Bader Ginsburg and the other guy, is it Breyer, are just holding on, trying to hold on.
Right.
Ruth
Bader Ginsburg's hanging on.
One of them is probably not going to make it to 2020, and then Gorsuch is just one thing. You put another one there, and you flip the court. And that's why you see Trump starting to say things like Roe v. Wade is bullshit.
Right. Oh, Christ.
And, a lot of people think, well, my example I use from law school is everyone always takes for granted Miranda rights.
Right.
Miranda rights are called Miranda rights because it came from a Supreme Court case named after a plaintiff called Miranda. Uh-huh. They're not set in stone. That's not in the Constitution. If someone brought
that's judicial law.
That's
right.
Supreme Court law. So, like, if the Supreme Court went
so
super
they call it
conservative,
judicial law.
yes, and it's a liberal court thing. So, like, if someone challenges Miranda rights and the Supreme Court said, yeah, that was a incorrect ruling, they won't have to read you your rights anymore. That's not something that you have. You can't go in a cop's face and be like, you got to read me my rights. No, I don't. Roe v. Wade is that way too. Roe v. Wade is not set in stone. People voting matter. That's the sad part about this whole thing.
And when they talk about Roe v. Wade being the law of the land, it's not always going to be the law of the land.
It's the law of the land until the Supreme Court hears a case and if
or gets packed
and says this, it was an incorrect ruling.
And says no.
So it's kind of scary.
Good Lord, that's apocryphal, or not apocryphal. What is the word I'm looking for? Apocalyptic. Apocryphal. That's the extra.
I think we're going to find, and I might have said this
apocalyptic
in an earlier podcast. I think we're going to find that the Supreme Court, what happens to the Supreme Court from this election in 2016, is going to set us back 100 years on the court side. We're going to be fighting. I think people of color and young people that are more liberal. I think this wave of them in the next 100 years, I think the country is going to get more and more liberal, and they're going to be fighting the
stymied
court. They're going to be always fighting
by
this
a conservative court.
Right. Trump has the power at this point, if Bader Ginsburg or Breyer step down, to change that court for the next 40 years. And the sad part is, and Henry, today, I feel like the Democrats kind of wimped out on this whole government shutdown thing. They really just all they got was, we'll talk about immigration. They didn't get it in stone.
I got the flag before I walked in here. They made an agreement, right?
They basically.
But what does the agreement say?
The agreement says Mitch McConnell basically guaranteed them that the Senate would talk about it.
That doesn't mean shit.
And if you know anything about Republicans, they bring guns to knife fights. So when it comes time to talk about it, they might just say, you know what? Nah. And if you want to shut the government down again, it's on you. Here again is the classic case of Mitch McConnell denied President Obama's Supreme Court pick for an entire year of his last term. And we let them get away with that.
How do you let them get away with it? You can't make them. You can't bring a gun to them. mean, you can't put a gun to their head and make them do it.
Democrats should
What could they have
refuse
done?
to participate in the government right now from that time on until if we got an up or down vote on whoever it was that Obama put forward,
Right,
which
that
was
guy.
even an equivocating guy anyway. It
I
wasn't-
know.
But
he was like the best. Yeah, I know what you mean. He was like one of the best.
best of the worst,
Even-handed
Yeah, and like
guys.
it's just like Democrats don't know how to play dirty, and it's going to cost us. But we'll see how the North Carolina thing shakes
Good
out.
Lord, you depressed the shit out of me, just Chris. God damn it.
well, with that, let's go to current events and see if we can get.
Look, I'm looking ahead at current. What the hell are you talking about? I'm looking ahead at everything. It's not good. Christ on a cross.
All right, let's get to current events and talk about it.
Current events.
This might be our. This is like some artists have their black album. This might be our.
We were all right. We were off mic.
Is this our? This might be our black episode.
We were making ourselves a drink, and I told Chris that I'm having a hell of a time right now with. He's laughing about it, but I'm trying to be real. I carry around a lot of anger and worry and pissed offness in my body now as a result of a lot of this. I guess the Trump and what it seems like the gradual disintegration of our culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it doesn't feel even.
Am I
It
using
doesn't
the right
even.
words?
Doesn't even feel gradual. Feels like it's.
was-
We were gradually getting better over the last 40 years,
Yeah.
and now the quick descent back into.
Yeah, and I was walking around a bookstore in Asheville, North Carolina, and I realized that I'm a ball of anger. That I'm just looking for a directionless, worried person with a furrowed brow all the time. Sad. Dolores O'Riordan. That sound right?
I would say to an Irish person that's butchering it, but yeah,
O'Riordan.
I always called her Dolores O'Riordan, but I could be
It's
wrong.
wrong. But she was in the Cranberries.
She was.
Really nice band from the 90s.
I
right?
wanted to say, my memory of the Cranberries was always suspect because, to me, being the music snobs that we were at the time,
Sure.
the Cranberries were the mainstream version of the Sundays and the Cocteau Twins, the bands we loved. So I always had this disdain for the Cranberries because it was like the Cranberries and Enya just kind of globbed onto our cool shit, but then going back and listening since she passed away here, I really don't like anything the Cranberries did after that first record. But that first little record they did nailed that time period. I mean, it made me feel like the early 90s and
Remember Zombie?
Zombie
That was the thing.
and the other one I was wanting to play one if we had time.
Yeah.
I was going to play Linger. Linger
Okay.
was the one that, for me, I think Zombie was. I always had a problem with Zombie because it was kind of like they were trying to show that they could
I
be
hate being
hard or
critical.
whatever.
I know this is not the moment. I mean, I don't find myself talking about the Cranberries.
All right, well,
okay?
let's-
I said death. Honestly, Chris is the great leveler. In some ways, like honestly. She's gone now, and I don't want to say anything bad about her. Zombie was like it or not a fixture of radio back then. It was they made an honest attempt to try to make some decent music.
And
I'm sure.
Another fun fact I learned yesterday that the leading cause of death in people under 50 years old now in the United States is drug overdose.
Right, and we found out this week that Tom Petty had fentanyl in his system along with some other things, right?
And we're probably going to find out that Dolores had some sort of opioid painkiller for whatever issue she had going on as well.
I didn't realize this was such a thing.
Prince died recently of an opioid.
I heard, now this might not be true. I heard somewhere that even Michael Jackson had some sort of patch that delivered something.
Yes.
I don't know if it was fentanyl, but
okay,
the rumor
now,
was that.
do you understand what fentanyl is, right?
I just know it's an opiate.
Fentanyl is 50 times more potent than heroin.
Now, isn't it prescribed for people who have like a lot of pain?
But it is, but it's also been flooding the black market because it's so much more powerful than heroin that people are like, damn,
They get addicted.
Well, I can buy less of that, but you can't. It's not regulated, so if you're buying it on the black market, so the deaths from fentanyl far outstrip heroin by a factor of 4 or 5 in the last 5 years. I think the number I saw was fentanyl deaths have gone up 560% in the last 2 years.
Good Lord!
It is so potent. Henry, I may take that back. I'm not even sure people do prescribe fentanyl. We'd have to look that up. I guess Tom Petty probably was prescribed it. But basically, it's kind of like if me or you were if we were way into some sort of like low-level caffeine pill, and then someone came to you and said, here's a Jolt Cola, you're going to be like, I'll take the Jolt Cola. And I know I can regulate my own role.
Right, this does the job.
Yeah, but it's terrifying, and it's also terrifying again that we've got a president that says he's going to go after the opioid problem and doesn't, and then our attorney general, who could actually do something about it, is going to go after
weed.
He's going to go after weed instead of.
I mean,
we got an opioid crisis. The leading cause of death in people under 50 is now.
He just says that. That was all Trump just saying things to get people's attention that have been touched by it. I don't think he plans on doing it.
No, I don't either. I don't think he knows how to do anything. I don't think he even understands the office, but that's nothing. Let's play in honor of Dolores from the Cranberries. This is Linger. All right, that was Linger by the Cranberries.
One of the most difficult things about like getting older, I think, is seeing these. I guess
How it reflects on your own feelings of mortality.
Your contemporaries start passing away. People
Yeah.
like her, who was our age basically,
She was. I mean, she was actually a year
Like
younger
dead on.
than me and you. So,
and people like Tom Petty and Prince and Jay Bennett and people like that.
it just seems weird to me, though, Henry, that to go back to the Tom Petty thing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think a guy like that would have people around him enough to be like, man, if you've got a broken hip to the point that it's finally split to the point where the pain, wouldn't you think somebody would be, hey man,
We're
we're not going to put you on fentanyl. We need to get you in the hospital.
And
Under
why
a
are
doctor's
you so
care?
god awfully dying to tour right now?
Right, like
On that,
let's take
because it seems like that's what really drives some of the drug
With
problem
Prince
is that
as well.
I insist on being out here with the people, which is a drug in and of itself. Like the fame and all of that, the adulation, the people's approval, the people that love you, all those things you're wired to like, feeds into it, right?
For sure.
So I got to get back in front of them, and I'm going to do what it takes to do that. It just feels like another, I don't know, is it addictions feeding on each other?
But it wasn't weird. Did you read any more about the Prince thing? It's like he had that. You're right. He had that need. But then the guy lived in like a mausoleum, basically like alone. It was really, I really want to go to Paisley Park. I want to see it more.
Yeah,
for
we
that.
talked about that.
It's like it sounded like he lived in like a PetSmart, like with recording studios and stuff. But you know what I mean? Like, on the one hand, what you're saying, I think is true. But then, like, the guy was super private and super weird. And I don't know. I think personally, and I don't want to bust your bubble because I know how big of he was your guy.
Well,
I think
he's a human being.
No. I was just thinking. I think part of this with Tom Petty was, I know he had struggles with addiction earlier.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was more of a Philip Seymour Hoffman self-medicating. This is a way for me to get back on the heroin, and fentanyl is better than heroin. And I know how to handle.
Oh, yeah,
I know how to handle. Like Philip Seymour Hoffman, I think, started taking the levels of heroin that he had taken when he was an addict, when he hadn't taken for like 5 years. You can't just start back.
Right, he couldn't medicate or self-regulate that.
Well, he was thinking, I can handle my shit. I know how to handle it.
But
And
he
it's like,
didn't.
dude, you haven't been on this shit in 5 years. You need to like slow your roll, and boom.
So did he actually did Tom Petty take too much? I mean,
Well, I don't think it's hard to take too much fentanyl. If it's 50 times stronger than heroin, that sounds crazy. I would think you would only want a doctor to regulate it, but I don't know. We'll.
but he had emphysema. He had some other
He
health
had a
problems.
lot of health problems, which makes me even more think, why didn't he have the guy's rich? Why didn't he have a doctor on call and saying, man, like what would you recommend me do in this situation? It just sounds, I don't know. I just think opioids, we've come as a society to depend on, instead of managing our pain on our own or fixing the underlying problem, we've just said, give me some sort of pill that will fix it for me. Like instead of saying, hey, guess what you have to do when you have high blood pressure? You have to change your diet and you have to exercise more. Give me a pill so I don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so I can still eat like shit and not ever
Right.
exercise.
So that I don't really have to do anything.
And it almost seems like it's kind of that kind of situation. I don't know. Let's move on.
Ouch.
I've got another current event issue, music issue that's
Okay.
a little more light, but maybe we can darken it up. This is our black episode for sure.
The black episode. That's what I have to call it. The black episode.
The black episode.
With the black barrel.
The black barrel, the Jameson's black barrel. It's perfect. So me and you had talked about this before too. The electronification of indie music.
I don't mind it.
And rock music. And I know you don't mind it. I feel like there's a lot of it I like, but there's some of it that I do mind. I wanted to start off by playing the new David Byrne single. Have you heard this?
Nope.
Okay, he's got a new album coming out. I want to just play it, and then we'll talk about it after. This is David Byrne's new song, American Utopia. Here it is.
A closer inspection. If you get down on your knees. Now everybody's coming to my house, and I'm never gonna be alone. And everybody's coming to my house, and I'm never gonna go back home. I'm pointing and describing, and I can be your guide. The skin is just a road map. The view is very nice. Imagine looking at a picture. Imagine driving in a car. Imagine rolling down the window. Imagine opening the door. Everybody's coming to my house. Everybody's coming to my house. I'm never gonna be alone, and I'm never gonna go back home. We're only tourists in this life. Only tourists, but the view is nice. And we're never gonna go back home. No, we're never gonna go back home. All right.
That was David Byrne. Everybody's coming to my house.
I mean,
I want to first say that I like it. Okay.
I don't know what you like about it. I mean,
Okay.
It's like-
But my initial thoughts are, so I'm listening to this, and it's like David Byrne is even going.
he took all like the best part. This is what I'm thinking. Maybe I need to listen to it with a better set of headphones or something. I heard it out. I haven't listened to it yet. I listened to it out of your Mac there. It sounds like he's taking sort of that sort of talking head sort of thing he does and shrinking it down to a little box on a computer.
Well, I listened to it in the car on regular speakers, and
I didn't like how high his voice went for some reason.
Yeah,
That made me uncomfortable.
and it's very. It's like he's exploring electronic music or whatever, but then, I couldn't get out of my head that he's kind of doing like a bad version of LCD's Daft Punk is playing at my house.
You mean, all right. So, all right, let's play the people like a snippet of Daft Punk.
LCD sound system.
Yeah, and Daft Punk.
Okay.
Both of those.
Daft Punk is playing at my house, I'll show you the ropes, kid, show you the ropes. Got a bus and a trailer at my house, I'll show you the ropes, kid, show you the ropes. I bought 15 cases for my house. All the furniture is in the garage. One more time. One more time.
Yeah, I mean, and if we're gonna go down this rabbit hole, Henry, there's something else. This wasn't in the. But let me play something for you from the new. And I went to see this in Chapel Hill, so I know this was happening. But let me play you something quickly from the newest Lamb Chop record.
Okay.
That was an NIV by Lamb Chop, which
are you saying are you trying to stake out a negative, like this is not a good thing?
Okay,
is that your case?
Here's what I'm going to say. So my brother bought me this new David Bowie oral history. I've been reading all these oral history things recently. That's the new hip way to do a biography. Mm-hmm. And so I'm totally like immersed myself again in David Bowie, who is my favorite, just beyond reproach. I don't even think anybody
a true badass
is even close, in my opinion. But I'm sitting here thinking, guys that I really respect, I'm not doubting them for doing this. I'm just saying, should David Byrne be copying LCD Sound System? And should the guy from Lamb Chop, who I really respect, should he be paying homage to Kanye West? Like, shouldn't those fuckers pay homage to them?
Kanye West doesn't own the vocoder.
Well, the only reason I say I know a little bit more of the backstory, he's openly said he did this record as like 808 and whatever that
808s and Heartbreak.
Yeah, he was really deeply moved by it, and he wanted to. Wanted to go for it.
Yeah,
and then you got David Byrne, who like basically is one of with the Ramones and Debbie Harry, like invented punk rock, and now it seems like he's aping
somebody else.
LCD Sounds. But again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Maybe I'm just old.
It's just
I like it.
I think all you're illustrating to me is like people trying to co-opt that to greater or lesser effect, and some more successful than others, right? To me, David Burns sounds a lot more canned. And
they're probably not as good at doing it because that's not their thing.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's no place for, like, what we used to do. There's no place for guitar music anymore.
Not really, but people...
And then, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to play Heroes by David Bowie because I think there's more inventiveness, creativeness in Brian Eno, Carlos Alomar, what they did with just the traditional rock setup. It sounds like the future.
You can still do it. Right.
It doesn't... It's...
Tom Petty would have agreed with you on that. Because remember, he used to say things like that. He would talk about how you can make those things in with guitars and drums.
I was reading this book and I went back, and one of Bowie's records that I haven't listened to a lot called Lodger. That was one of the Berlin trilogy, and I'm like, it sounds like the fucking future to me now. Like, it's got this quality to it, like it's beyond our time. And they're just playing guitars. Like, there's some keyboard, but it's not like they didn't make this thing on a fucking MacBook Pro. They made it on, with tape.
One of the reasons that Bowie was good was because the fame, as that movie really well illustrated, was to gain himself some options. Right? That at least that's the way it was explained to me. Like the fame wasn't the end in and of itself. The fame was reached for to get to expand that realm of consciousness to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? I'm probably explaining it wrong.
No.
But you get it. Like the fame in and of itself was not the goal. I got the fame so that I could get the influence to do this thing. Do this major artistic statement.
Sure, to do what I want to do.
And it doesn't stay in a box that nobody hears.
Right.
It's going to go to everybody.
Right. But he never... It's weird. Bowie. We could do a whole episode on
Sure.
Bowie.
Yeah, I'm not a Bowie expert, but the movie told me that.
It just seemed to me like every time I write off guitar rock,
That it starts coming back to you.
well, I'll listen to something that me and you maybe missed. Like, I think the reason I really like Bowie now is I didn't really like him in the 80s and 90s when I was a kid.
Was it because of some of the stuff that he was doing?
Well,
Was that Inside record? Remember that?
Which I like. I love that.
Is that the
record.
one?
Yeah, and I bought that.
I have that too.
It's creepy and awesome, and it's so free. But no, for me, it was more like Let's Dance.
Oh, like you didn't like that?
I like it now, but at the time when we were kids, he was classic rock.
Yeah.
He was. There's nothing threatening about him. He and Mick Jagger were running around doing covers of whatever. He was playing with Stevie Ray Vaughan. It wasn't like, it wasn't like the 70s Berlin trilogy. It was like he's on the radio every day right next to Bruce Springsteen and, all the stuff that I just wanted to throw up. Now I like Bruce Springsteen too. But I'm just saying, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that I don't think you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater on this whole. Nothing can be done with traditional instruments.
James
anymore.
Murphy made a whole career about being that kind of artist, right? About playing with electronic music and
does it so well.
And he did it in a very punk rock way. David Byrne, who basically invented punk rock in the CBGB area, he doesn't need to grab onto the tools of the modern generation to try to do that.
That's what I'm trying to say.
He needs to be David Byrne, is what you're saying.
Which the way what he's doing doesn't bother me, but it's like,
yeah.
Is this terrible to say? Stay in your lane, bro.
I just the song you played to me maybe didn't really do it for me.
Right.
Well, I think it's because the lyrics weren't that great.
Well, let me ask you something else. Does this do it for you? Do you want to?
Man.
Did you give? We need to wrap things up.
Yes.
Did you give the Kendrick Lamar the due it deserved to review it, or?
I love this record, man.
Okay,
it
so
reminds me of the guy. He is like the new Ginsberg to me. The guy. For me. It's an art form that is best appreciated without overanalyzing it. You put it in your ears and you pick up what you can pick up. It's so dense that you could listen to it 3 or 4 times in a row and pick up different little threads of meaning.
Well, let's play a song. What you?
I'd like to hear the song "Humble." I mean,
okay,
that's the one.
Let's play the song "Humble."
Yeah.
Nobody pray for me. It been a day for me. Yeah. Hey, I remember syrup sandwiches and crime allowances. Finesse a nigga with some counterfeits, but now I'm counting this. Parmesan with my accountant lips. In fact, I'm down in this. You say with my boo babe tastes like Kool-Aid for the analyst. Girl, I can buy your Westie world with my base stuff. Ooh, that pussy good. Once you sit it on my taste buds. I get way too petty once you let me do the extras. Pull up on your block and break it down. We playing Tetris. AM to the PM, PM to the AM phone. Piss out your per diem. You just gotta hate them phone. If I quit your BM, I still rock Mercedes funk. If I quit this season, I still be the greatest funk. My left stroke just went viral. Right stroke put a baby in a spiral. Soprano C, we like to keep it on the high note. It's levels to it, you and I know. Bitch, be humble. Hold up, bitch. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Bitch, sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Bitch, sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Who that nigga thinking that he frontin' on that man? Get the fuck off my stage, I'm the Sandman. Get the fuck off my dick, that ain't right. I make a play, fucking up your whole life. I'm so fucking sick and tired of the Photoshop. Show me something natural like Afro with your pride. Show me something natural like ass with some stretch marks. Still'll take you down right on your mama couch in polo socks. Hey, this shit way too crazy. Hey, you do not amaze me. Hey, I blew cool from ACA. Obama just page me. Hey, I don't fabricate it. Hey, most of y'all be faking. Hey, I stay modest about it. Hey, she elaborated. Hey, this that Grey Poupon, that AV on that TED Talk. Hey, watch my soul speak. You let the meds talk. Hey, if I kill a nigga, it won't be the alcohol. Hey, I'm the realest nigga after all. Bitch, be humble. Bitch, sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Bitch, sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Bitch, sit down. Be humble. Sit down.
All right, that was "Humble" by Kendrick Lamar. And so, Henry, we have a new, we instituted last week, we have a new scale.
Oh, yeah.
We have no shots, 1 shot, 2 shots, or drink the whole bottle. I'm assuming you're going to call this a...
Yeah, I'm all in on this one.
You're going to call it a drink the
I'm
whole
a
bottle.
whole bottle of this guy. I mean, and this might, I mean, I'm not, take it from a 47-year-old middle-aged man. I mean, it seems like this incendiary, pinnacle of a guy's art form. I don't know that he could top it.
Okay.
I believe.
I'm going to say...
You probably like some of it.
I'm going to say pass completely on this record.
Really?
I find the density to be so off-putting. Mm-hmm. The record seems cold to me. Mm-hmm. It seems like dense in the way that Blues Traveler is annoying because that guy won't shut the fuck up.
Really?
I can't find any kind of... I can't... So, and you know this about me, Henry. I'm a music guy first, lyric second. So that might be part of my problem.
Maybe.
I can't find any kind of hook musically to get me in. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he's fucking talking about half the time because he's talking so fucking much.
That's what I loved about it. But I listened to this sort of on the tail end of Ginsberg's Howl, which sometimes doesn't make sense.
So
that resonated in my head. But I also didn't listen to Pimp a Butterfly like you did. So
and I did not.
This is my first taste of this dude.
Okay, so here's I love Mad City, the first one, his debut. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
It had hooks.
Uh-huh.
But he also, I could understand what he was talking about, but I thought it was great. To Pimp a Butterfly, I thought was super artistic. It just wasn't my cup of tea, but I could see where people thought it was super dope. Mm-hmm. This one just sounds like, to me, it just sounds like a beat. Very much like Howl. Just a beat for a guy to just run off at the mouth over.
Yeah.
And maybe part of, I don't want to make excuses. I don't like the record, but part of it was I watched this football game halftime Kendrick Lamar thing. I don't know if you noticed that he did this. Oh, it was the NCAA championship football game.
Okay.
Between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs. Mm-hmm. And the halftime show was from Olympic Park in Atlanta, was Kendrick Lamar. And the word had gotten out that Trump showed up at the game in the first half. So Kendrick comes out, and I'm like, this is the voice of the generation. This is the guy.
Get it.
And he's going to say something. Mm-hmm. And instead, I just hear him run off at the mouth for 15 minutes about rapping, and I don't even know what he's talking about.
Well, I don't know.
And I see they show the crowd, and it's all 20-something white kids just sitting here throwing gang signs, just bouncing, throwing gang signs. And I'm like,
I guess
even if he is super and witty, like or super literate, and he's
I don't know how literate
he's
he is.
spewing to the masses. None of his fans are getting it. They're all just throwing gang signs and like.
Yeah. So you're saying that whole thing kind of may have polluted your perception of it, but.
Part of it was like if that had been Neil Young, there was going to be something that said, and guess what? I heard the president's over at the Super Bowl. Go fuck yourself.
But here's the thing. I believe that I gave this a legitimate listen because I am sick of the whole guitar, drums, bass dynamic that happens now. I like some of the electronification
I like
music.
it too.
I like the freedom that it can offer. But in David Byrne's in that song you played with me, David Byrne has potential to kind of go way wrong.
But I guess what I was saying back to the guitar bass thing is that you shouldn't blame the guitar.
No. I'm not. Let me get to my point. The Kendrick Lamar record, my first taste of this is like, there's so much samples in there. And I think I'm enamored with just the whole art form itself. And I didn't really realize what a great lyricist the guy was. Just seems innate. I don't have any of the other stuff with me at all.
Go back and listen to his first record because like I used to like listen and think I can't wait for this song.
Yeah.
Now I heard this record and I'm like, you know what it really reminded me of? Did you ever see any of those HBO deaf where deaf poetry slams where people just kept going, I'm doing a when and I'm doing a duh and I'm doing a duh and hey duh.
Yeah.
And you're like, all they would need is a guy on a bucket going behind it, and that's all I'm hearing on this new record. Now I'm old and I'm white.
Maybe
there probably is a hook in there somewhere. I was just like,
and I'm not like I wasn't really caring about the hook. It just seemed like this. It's like this painting that's being delivered at me with a fire hose.
Definitely see and even when you're
which
the fire hose.
Yeah, and I guess that amazes me enough to say, what the fuck? This has got to be amazing. Right?
Well, and I was the other thing that I thought of when I was listening to it was there's a record by Childish Gambino,
yes,
which I think does to me the same thing but with songs. So like I like that much better, even though I think he's super literate and you got to listen to what the fuck he's saying. But I can just listen to his song and be like, that's a fucking dope song.
I know about him, and he's my next project. So.
Okay, he's the guy from Community. Was on the show Community. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, he's on Atlanta.
My favorite, and he made Atlanta. Show. Atlanta is him, which is great. A great show, and
that guy works hard, man.
He does.
It's like he does that. He does Childish Gambino. He does stand-up comedy, I think. Doesn't he? And also does the Atlanta show and all that.
Donald Glover. Yeah, great. I think it's great. So
my understanding is his family used to be Jehovah's Witnesses, by the way.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's what I've heard. Anyway.
Well, let's wrap things up by saying you are all in on the Kendrick Lamar.
Yep.
I am not in at all. Childish Gambino, I highly recommend. If you're going to check it out.
I am going to check it out.
Folks, we'll be back next week. We promise we won't do such dark episodes, but I think every now and then,
any promises.
Every now and then we need that, right? We need a little catharsis.
Well, I mean, that's what we do, man.
I mean, you got to talk about the shit that's happening, right?
Yes.
These are dark times.
Yeah. I mean, we have no choice.
Right.
We have no choice.
Well,
what do you want? But people on fucking mushrooms and shit? Like, in Asheville this week, I passed by one of these places that have the mushroom, like people sitting on mushrooms and doing like playing the fucking flute and shit.
See, some people have just checked out, man. They're just like, fuck it.
All right, well, we ain't got no goddamn band.
We don't need no fancy words. I mean, we need to practice. We need to rehearse.
I'll tell you what we need. We need some paying gigs. We don't need this messing around, first one patio and then another, and that's ridiculous.